everybody. Thank you. Let's try that again. Good morning, everybody. Much better. Welcome to our weekly FEBE morning meetings, and we do this every Wednesday, same time, same place. Our sponsor, Dunkin' Donuts. A gentleman has one across the street on 58 and one at Cam. So if you're in those areas, please help him out as he has helped us out since our inception. So I'm going to turn things over to Dave Skoglund, and he is going to talk about walls, ropes, and gremlins. So Dave, I'm going to turn things over to you.
Cool. Thanks. Good morning. Yes, this is a participative session. I am not speaking. I am facilitating or a discussion leader. So that warm-up of good morning does matter, so pay attention here. I'm happy to be here and talk to you guys about success. One of the things that everybody in the room, whether you're in a job, whether you're in a business, whether you're thinking of starting a business, we all strive for success. Yet the unique thing about success is it's different for each and every one of us. Our vision, our dream, our future, it varies by person, by circumstance, and by time within your lifespan. The one thing, though, that is typically there in common, we all seem to have, is that we typically have things that get in the way of maximizing our success. And if you look, the strategic planning process is a very simple process. 4 steps, and you get your desired results. Understand where you are now, create a detailed picture of where you want to be, evaluate your options, and then set goals, create action items, and get into the day-to-day implementation. Make a strong commitment, be accountable to that commitment, and voila, you got desired results. Seems easy, right? Should be a piece of cake. But how many of you guys are business owners right now? I know in talking. Okay, if you look around the room, about half. I think you'll realize and recognize when you started out, you knew you had some challenges. There were certain things that you just knew. If you did your first business plan and went back 5 years later, you know exactly what I'm referring to. You put things on paper, you looked at it, and then all of a sudden, stuff happens. Lots of stuff. Stuff that you didn't anticipate, stuff that you didn't see, didn't even know existed, pop up. And those of you that have had your business for a little bit of time, if you've been like me, at some point or another, you probably put it on autopilot for just a little bit, maybe for longer than a little bit, and decided coasting was okay. Guess what? Stuff pops up again. People will always say, oh yeah, I'm comfortable. The moment you start to be comfortable, stuff happens. So I chose the title of Walls, Ropes, and Gremlins, and what's holding you back from success. Because as a small business coach, working with small business owners, I typically see people who have been successful, but currently are either frustrated, are drained, or are just stagnant in what they're doing. And they struggle with stuff that, quite honestly, they can't see, or they just can't find a solution to it. So when they finally do discover what's going on, the root cause of their problem usually gets back to one of those 3 things: walls, ropes, or gremlins. Maybe even a combination of them. So my goal here today is to provide you some information, ask questions. I told you it's participative. And then hopefully you'll get a better awareness of where you are on those 4 things. You'll have a better understanding or a way to look at where you are now and how you can create that picture of the future of what your dream is, what your success model looks like. And then looking at some of the stuff, hopefully it'll give you an awareness so that it doesn't jump up and bite you. At least you'll be able to train it and possibly minimize it. Okay? Sounds like a plan? Okay. Success. Again, we said everybody's is different. Generally speaking, again, if you have a business, or even if you're in a position in an organization, most people have told you at some time or another, you gotta have a vision, you gotta have a plan. You can't make your goals unless you have a plan. And creating a target is really important to be able to get to that stage. I mean, you can use a flashlight as an example. Right now, that's a wide beam that you can barely see. But if you look over there, you can see with the gremlin that's on my shoulder shaking the flashlight, if you fine tune it and focus it, you have a better chance of seeing what you're doing. So when you look at this, creating a vision of what that target is and understanding what you're trying to drive for is that point in the distance on the horizon that you really are trying for. So the better you can get it, if you can get it at least north, south, east, or west, at least you're going in the general direction that you want to go. And then ideally, you'd like to be able to say, all right, if I'm trying to get to Hilton Head, do I take 71 or 77 south first? And then you narrow it down. And then clarity is the second part. Knowing exactly where you are and where you want to go, being able to focus on that in as crystal clear as you can will just make that drive a little bit easier. And for the sake of this presentation, I want to make the assumption, I know that's bad, so let me just say, I want to say that you all know where you are and that you have a pretty good understanding of your strengths and your behavioral patterns. If you don't, if that's going, oh crap, I really don't, Strength Finders through Gallup research, it has a program called Strength Finders, which can have it's a short question type of situation that can help you identify what your top strengths are. And then again, if you haven't done some of the behavioral things, DISC or something like DISC is a great way to be able to say, I kind of call it your operating system. It gives you an idea of how you think and how you interact with others. Assuming you have all that, and if you don't, that's for another topic. I want to do the first exercise. There's pieces of paper on the table, and if you don't have a pen, there's pens on there. I want you to create a picture that best represents what success looks like currently to you. You can write it out as a description. You can draw it. I did have crayons, but they were in a big box, and they're all mixed and matched, and I didn't really feel it was appropriate to bring them. But put on paper, if you know exactly what it is, write it down. Put as much description as you can on it. Or if you're more the arts type, draw that picture. So let's take a couple minutes and just do that. This is what my picture of success looks like. Success to me is getting to choose opportunities that utilize my strengths and are aligned with my values. It's pretty broad, but it encompasses everything. In case you're wondering where that is, that's a picture in the Grand Tetons out in Wyoming. And it kind of hit me when I was putting this presentation together. It's been my screensaver for about 4 years, and I couldn't really figure out why, but I looked at it, and this is on actually a bridge. You've got the water, you've got a number of different things, you've got the mountains that you can deal with, you've got the woods. It encompasses a lot of variation and variables, but the opportunity is that I get to choose where I go. So that's my vision or my picture of success.
Still a success in your vision when it's frozen?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
Because I can choose to be there or not. I mean, I don't have to be there in that particular thing, but yeah, because there is some pretty cool things out there in the wintertime. Skiing's great just around the corner. The second exercise I want you guys to do, and I'm glad that table filled in, is just take a minute and share your vision with the other people. Becoming accountable and comfortable with it is important. So just, if you're really uncomfortable, whisper it to the person next to you, or if not, just go around and just share your goals and visions with each other. Look back. Let me ask a question, show of hands. How many of you had pictures that represented your future or your success from your job or your business perspective? Okay, look around. Okay. I'm assuming then the others look more from a life perspective?
Why can't it be both?
There you go. My point of reference is when we talk about work-life balance and whether or not it's in balance, it's all part of the same thing. It's you. So if you look from one perspective versus the other, go back and look from the other side of it and say, all right, what do I need from that or want from that? Because you can't say, well, it's 70-30, it's all you. You have to put it together in your own way, shape, and form. All right, well, now that we talked a little bit about success, let's talk about some of the constraints. Walls is the first one. Okay, most people recognize a wall's a barrier. It's an obstacle. It's something that you have to get around in one way, shape, or form. And there's lots of ways to get around walls. I mean, you can climb it, jump it, you can hopefully find a door. The wall might be short enough you can walk around it. You can dynamite it. I mean, there's lots of ways when you think of things that are in your way and challenges that you can get around a barrier. What are some examples of walls in your life? If you use that as a definition, what are examples? Anyone? Yeah.
Your own self.
Okay. Can you get around yourself or through yourself or blow yourself up?
Yeah.
Okay. Then that's a wall for you. What else?
Family can be both a blessing and
That's a good point. And, okay. And keep that in the back of your mind when you get to the next ropes and gremlins and see where it fits. Any other walls? Finance is a good one.
Failing to recognize personal weaknesses.
Sure, that can be as well, because that's something that you can overcome or come around it and get through it. Okay, well, here's some others. The economy can be a wall. I mean, you can hear it from both directions. The economy is bad. I don't have the clients I once had. The economy is good. I can't find people. I mean, it can work. You can work at either. The wall can grow either direction with the economy. Finances is a perfect example. The bank won't lend me money, or I can't grow fast enough to handle the receivables, and then knowledge and expertise is also a wall. If you think about it, it's something that you can improve upon. You can overcome it. Whether you're using that as a wall or a barrier to say, I don't have a degree or I don't have a specialization or a certification, it's doable. I mean, things like FEBE and LCCC, even the group members here and the wealth of information that are here, that's how, if you're letting knowledge and expertise get in your way, sure, you're not going to be a rocket scientist or a neurosurgeon, but in starting your business, if you've got a strong dream or vision and the determination, those types of things are, they're possible. You can get past them. The last one I put on here is blind spots. To me, a blind spot is an invisible wall. It's something that, if you think about it, it's something that keeps stymieing you, but you don't know why it does. Things that you just keep bumping into repetitively, to me, would be a blind spot. And again, those can be overcome through different means and ways. Okay, next are ropes, and that's why I said kind of hold that. It's hard to get to fly when something is weighing you down. To me, a rope is a hindrance, would be the best word to use. It's something that if you cut it, generally you'll see rapid growth or expansion. Improvement normally comes from that. So, Jan, in your case, I would think family could possibly be a rope. If you can cut the bad behavior, there's a lot of things. What other ropes are there in your lives that are hindrances, that when you snip it in your past lives, good stuff happens quickly?
insecurities.
Insecurities? Okay.
If you're in a partnership and maybe the one partner's weighing you down, you're not going in the same vision.
That would be, yeah. People that you're working with, yeah.
The fear of failure and expansion.
Okay, that can get you. Others? Yeah.
Lifestyle, like party or whatever.
And that's, yeah, trying to get to work on Monday morning if you've tailgated and went to the Browns for way too long, that would be a great example too. Well, here's some others. Chris had mentioned the partner, but a disruptive or unproductive employee. How many of you that have employees have gone, crap, this is so much better now that somebody else is in that position, or even when that person's not there, the stress and the strain of having a poor employee or a disruptive employee. And it can be a partner, that's the other one, or even a bad client or customer is that. Generally, you get the bad client syndrome when you're starting up. Again, if you go back to your early days, you that are in business, what's the thing that you're driving for? Revenue. And it's amazing what you can justify doing in the name of revenue when you're first starting. And a bad client can just suck the life out of you. I mean, they can be ornery, they can be slow pay. So that's another one of those. No written goals or failure to delegate are other types of things that, if you think about it, if you put those things in place, usually it gives you some stability, it may give your organization some stability, and you start to see leaps in growth and whatnot. Overspending is another one that can be there, that if you get to that stage, it's kind of like over-partying would be in that similar category, where if you're trying to get your business running too quickly, that's something that all of a sudden it stymies what you're doing, and you have to step back, fix it, and move on. Bad habits, to me, the habit is something that can be fixed, but instead of a rock on it, usually this is where there's a gremlin. A bad habit is usually one that has this third category in a gremlin. So you're probably wondering, what's a gremlin? Well, I was going to try to fit this in and I couldn't, but I left it here anyway. Did any of you guys have a gremlin in the 70s? Before I embarrass somebody and say, okay. Well, clearly, this was a rock on your social life. This drug you down if you owned a gremlin. It did not really work. But no, really, a gremlin. My definition of a gremlin is a self-limiting habit that you have or behavior that you have. These typically come from deep inside you. They are with you from the moment you have interaction with other people and your environment. It's all of the things that you've been told in your life and that you just build into your story and your values, your way of thinking. Another way of saying it is they're ingrained thoughts and behaviors that negatively impact you. If you think when you do something that you go, my God, that doesn't make sense, that's not logical, that's probably your gremlin talking. How many of you can see my gremlin on my left arm? He's here. One of my gremlins is speaking. I mean, it's no matter how well I know a topic, no matter how well I know the people, speaking in front of audiences, there's a gremlin. He's whispering in my ear going, you suck. I mean, it's just there, and it keeps doing it. Well, thank you. We'll put you on the right, no. But we all have them, and it's those types of attitudes that hold us back. So when you think of gremlins that way, from my experiences, they can be the most destructive of the three things because they're inside you. Outside, you can, as a business person or as a leader, you tend to have the ability to think about and strategize and make things happen. When it's internal, those things just kind of gnaw at you, and that's those things that you just are uncertain about how to go forward and what to do. Okay, so we know what the definition of gremlin is. What's the gremlin feed on? Bingo. Gremlins love fear. Failure, we talked about a little of that. Failure, rejection, change, uncertainty, being judged, getting hurt. Those are all fears that we share. And I had to put those two people on there because both candidates right now are feeding on the gremlins of society. They're feeding on our fears. Regardless of which position you want, that's what America's politics, unfortunately, has come to. So when you realize that, understanding your gremlins and limiting the amount of food they get will go a long way to achieving your success. When you can find them and compartmentalize them and hopefully put them off in the corner for a little bit, I mean, they'll pop up, they'll keep coming, but the more you can tame them to do it the way you want to, the better off you're going to be. So start looking for your gremlins, as you go through your day-to-day life, what's causing you to make decisions that go counter to what your vision and your goals are. Okay, so we defined the three things. So what's really holding you back? I've listed 6 things here. Asking yourself the wrong questions, waiting for the right time to do something, listening to everybody but yourself, comparing yourself to others, doing it alone, and assuming talent and not grit is the secret to success. And what do I mean by the first one, asking yourself the wrong questions? And I'm going to start with the word. If you are using a lot of if questions in your life, if I succeed, if I don't do that, if instead of how, what, when types of things, how can I make it through this? You're limiting yourself. If questions drain energy from you, you want to be able to look again. If you've got that picture and it's out on the horizon, it gives you that opportunity to ask the how, what, why questions and when, instead of the if, which drain to say, well, if it doesn't quite work, do I have a fallback? If it doesn't do this. So realizing how do you position yourself for your success and what questions are you asking? Waiting for the right time. Well, let me back up. Asking the wrong questions. What would you consider that? A wall, a rope, or a gremlin? Could be. Any other thoughts? Could be a rope because you cut it and you do it, or it could even be a wall. I mean, it could really, it kind of fits into any of those. Okay, waiting for the right time. A sister axiom to that would be not taking any action at all. For instance, here is you keep putting things off because it's just not the right time, or you've made lists and plans, but then you have to recheck them and go back and do more research, or hang on, I'm going to take 5 minutes to redo the presentation and come back to you with a better, different type of thing. It's always finding an excuse not to get into action. And I think this one would be what of the three? Somebody was mouthing a gremlin, because it gets inside your head saying it's not the right time. You know, in this kind of situation, people that have perfectionist tendencies oftentimes do that because it's got to be right. And I fall into that category. That's the gremlin that's on my right shoulder. I've learned to try to do pass-fail in those situations. It's better to do something, because if you start an action, if you plan and plan and plan, if you start the action, you're going to find out if your plan is even right. Until you do something, you don't even know if you're in the right direction. So starting down a path, and that's why I use the example of start north, south, east, and west if you're really not sure, because at least you're going in a direction that you feel comfortable going. Don't just go scatter and go 5 miles to the north, 3 miles to the east. It just doesn't provide the continuity to hit your goals effectively. Listening to everybody but yourself. If you're new at this and you're starting your business, it's really easy to become a sponge and to ask everybody for their information. And more often than not, you're going to ask 5 people and get 5 different opinions of how to do it and what's best. And all of a sudden, paralysis sets in. So the guiding force here that can work for you is, if you do have a crystal clear vision of what you want, getting that information, talking to those people is great. Distill it into what's important to you and how it fits where you're trying to go. And don't try to use everybody else's and just overlay their success into yours. Yours is unique and it has to be based upon what you really value. The fourth is comparing yourself to others. This one is oftentimes also a startup situation, or if you're getting into something new. As a startup, when I got into the staffing business, I started to look at all the big, large staffing firms, and I'm going, how in God's name can I compete with these people? And what I failed to realize is I had something unique, and I was in a different stage. They typically went through stages 1 through 100. I was on stage 2. So I was trying to compare myself to somebody that was up here already with all the infrastructure and all their things, and that wasn't fair. So I was almost doomed to fail with that philosophy, and I was fortunate enough to have somebody that was involved with the startup that brought me back to reality to say, okay, the reason you can get into this business is there's a niche. Stay to it, focus on it, and grow it, and look from where were you last week or last month to where are you now. So if you measure yourself against your performance toward where you were, your starting point to where you're going, that's going to be the key thing for a startup. So sometimes getting caught up in who's my competition and where are we going gets in the way. The fifth, doing it alone. This one, I can say I have this as a problem. I call it the MacGyver effect. It's also very common in older gentlemen. I think the perfect invention that came for males that are born in the 40s, 50s, or 60s was GPS. We never had to ask for directions again, and we never had to be embarrassed that we were lost. So, and that's the I got to do it myself thing that gets in the way. If you see asking for help as a sign of weakness, you probably have a gremlin on your shoulder. Or maybe it just doesn't occur to you to ask for help, or that people are willing to help. That's probably a blind spot. That would be a wall that you can fix. If you want to succeed on your own and you just build the wall around you, that's great, but at some point in time, it will be a limiter. A friend of mine, about 3 years ago, over lunch, made a comment. We was talking about how he focused his business into a very specific niche. And during the conversation, he asked a question. He said, it was something like, I know you're hesitant to ask for help, but let me ask you this question. Dave, how do you feel when somebody asks you for help and you give it? I said, feel good. You know, his quick response back was, so why are you depriving other people of feeling good? And if you look at it that way, instead of I'm bothering somebody, I'm bothering Chris, or they're too busy to do this, Jan doesn't have the time, she's too busy with something else, that gets in the way. If you take that perspective, I think you can overcome that. So here's a last exercise. Just on your sheet of paper that you have, list 3 things that you're struggling with. And if you only can put 1 or 2 down, put whatever you can down. If you've got 4, put 4. And then next to each one on that list at least one person that you know that may be experienced, not is, but may be experienced in that area, and that you can ask to help you. And then the last thing in that would be write one question that you would ask. And this is something then you can take and actually use. And I'm going to let you guys multitask, so keep doing that because I know you can listen and you don't have to look at me while you're doing things. The last piece of this is assuming talent and not grit is the secret to success. At some point when you've owned a business or in your career progression, you've discovered a steep challenge, an uphill struggle that you've had to go through to get to where you want to be. And oftentimes you begin to start to think that you don't have the smarts, the skills, the stamina, that you're lacking in some way. And maybe it's just easier to shoot a little lower, aim a little lower, or just try something different. But when you do go through that, and if you succeed where you've really challenged yourself, be like running a marathon would be an example. That's a sign of grit. You don't buy into the mindset that you're not good enough. You know, anything you do will get easier by doing. And you've probably heard grit if you've been watching anything in the military or the educational studies. Grit is now something that's being monitored in the school systems to say, is it the economic background? Is it the sociological things? And they're finding that grit is a determinant rather than just pure raw capabilities and IQ scores for success, regardless of what environment the student is in. And clearly in the military, if you talk about Navy SEALs or Army Rangers, that's what differentiates. They all have incredible talent. It's the grit that gets them through. So what is grit? Well, passion and perseverance for long-term goals. It's working really hard to make the future a reality and living life like a marathon and not a sprint. That's the difference between what I see corporate America now versus what it was back when I first started in it. It was a marathon. People looked at the long term, and unfortunately, a lot of corporate America has become a sprint. So by default, we all have pushed our behavior into that sprint mode as well. So how do you enhance grit? Find purpose in everything you do. I guess I would say, otherwise, what's the point? I mean, if you think about it, most successful people that you talk to usually have a smile on their face. They love what they do. There's passion in what they are doing. So you have to know that you're connected to a greater purpose than just that task. You know, connect your purpose to your values. Again, those happiest people find ways to think of their lives and their careers in ways other than you would in a job description. It's merging and melding them together for, you know, a greater purpose. Developing an optimistic outlook. To me, it's the foundation of being successful as a business leader. You have issues. You always have issues as a business owner, but you can't bring them to your workforce. And if anybody that has employees, know they pick up on every little signal. So it's really important that you can compartmentalize and you keep the negativity out, because it's really pointless. It inhibits you. It is kind of a gremlin. You have to look at it as a challenge and fix it. You need to, you know, look at those types of things and don't get distracted with them. You either have to leap over them, cut them, so that you can achieve your dreams. And then last is silencing that inner critic. I mean, it's really important that we have to ignore our gremlins. You know, getting outside our comfort zones is really where things start to happen for us. The more you push yourself beyond what you think your limits are, the larger your confidence becomes. And then the things that seemed impossible are possible. So with that, what's holding you back? Questions?
Just can't help but ask if you had any special thoughts in today's political environment when you talk about walls and show a picture of a wall. Is that some kind of an influence?
No, I was going to use a corny joke that some walls are greater than others, but I decided that really wasn't appropriate for this. No, it was. It did not have a copyright on it, and it was easy to pick up and put in there, so that's how that wall got there. One last thing. I asked the folks in charge, we're going to do something different for your elevator pitch, okay? Because one of the things I do with networking groups and stuff is I'm an accountability coach. One of the things I want to know, let me ask the question, how many of you expected to have a sale come from being here today? Just a show of hands. Okay, then maybe you do have a wall barrier or gremlin. Not that it immediately happens, but by meeting somebody and talking about the differences between the merger with Huntington and First Merit and how it impacts dollar, might lead to somebody going, oh, there's a disgruntled customer, which may lead to. So realize that's the longer term vision. Something immediately probably won't come from today's meeting, but something could. So with that in mind, here's what I'd want. Instead of saying, I'm wonderful, I've got a great product, I market to people that need websites, and your name, your company, and what a client has told you, the need that you solved for them. Okay? I'll show you what I mean. I'm Dave Skoglund. My company is Multidimensional Services. Recently, a client who made actually it was a referral. The person that referred me said, I was amazed in that our conversation, they got about 5 months farther down the curve than where they were. There was at least 4 aha moments that it came, so that now they can focus on the important things that I've been trying to get them to see for months. That's what I do. Would you like to go next?